الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله نستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وعلى أصحابه أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. Bismillah. We are here once again. Alhamdulillah, all three of us, the trio is here, and we are actually redoing this episode because my fault. Topic will be the war of superiority, the age-old battle, the future fights for the foreseeable future, and we're looking to settle it here and right now. And that is old really gold, or have the new filled in their shoes? There's 5 main points that we want to talk about. 4 points, and the 5th one is the conclusion. 4 points. First one, laying down Islamic foundation. Who is better, who has laid down, and who will be better at laying down Islamic foundations? Who does it look like has laid down the better Islamic foundations? Second, future building, opportunities and stability for the youth, for the people that are coming after us, Islamically, non-Islamically. Who is better in this? The third one, mindset, bigger picture. Who looks at the bigger picture? Who is more conserved and just thinking about themselves and their own area? And the fourth one is strength and weaknesses of both of them. And then we'll come to our conclusion. How can we get the best of both? So, inshallah, as we begin, the first topic would be laying down Islamic foundation. Who's better? I'll give it first to Nasir.
Really and truly, for someone to lay a foundation, you need someone to start it in the first place. And that being said, we lived in an era and we live in a certain country where deen was relatively non-existent in the past 100 years. And as we obviously saw in the past, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the beginning of his journey as a prophet, at his time in the Makkah period, the Makkah era, the first, the years in Makkah, where despite being a certain amount of years, there weren't many Muslims. So in a similar situation where in this country, deen wasn't as prominent, and it was through the efforts of our ulama of our countries, that our forefathers that had come into this country to, of course, try to spread Islam. As it, like, when we do hijrah, it's always meant to be with the intention of spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is something that our forefathers did. But how much influence and how quickly the influence spread, of course, in the beginning times, it wasn't as much. So our parents, whenever they did come, and their parents, whenever they did come, so our grandfathers, etc., our forefathers, they may have come for individual reasons, for betterment of their own lively situation. Maybe it wasn't the same as, with the intention of spreading deen, like our ulama of the past did.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. That whole, do you think they came for that reason? Some people would say they didn't come for Islamic, but more financial. But yeah, go on, carry on.
Yeah, so my answer sort of gave it away, where it was more for the financial and worldly side. But due to the efforts of our forefathers that did come to spread that effort, they lived in relative peace, because the people became more aware of what we were about as Muslims, what they were about as Muslims. Because had that not been the case, then the incidence of Islamophobia would have been far far greater, or the influence of the westernized societies, or should I say the non-Muslim societies, would have crept in to some of our forefathers, had the foundations not been set, not been laid down by the ulama that did come for the sake of tabligh, for the sake of spreading deen. So with that, our forefathers sort of gained that confidence that I can be a practicing Muslim openly and not be challenged by it, or feel that I have to conform to society. And of course, society then, you could argue, was far better than now, because of when before, I would say, when there was a lack of knowledge of something, people were more curious then. Whereas now it's influence. Who can have the bigger influence? And when something, it doesn't seem right to them or correct to them, it's something that they want to challenge all the time. Maybe there was, of course, there'll always be a community that challenge certain things that go against their beliefs. Which, when we have the racist groups, etc. They don't understand it. But when there's um when there's not been a media portrayal, or someone to influence them to think bad of that certain group without them seeing the person's actions for themselves, then it's less likely that they would straight away jump the gun and say this man's a terrorist, or this man's like this, and curry muncher, this, that, the standard stereotypes. So in terms
Mm.
of
Yeah, what I'm
l-
understanding is you're saying it was harder for the older generation to build that
yeah,
foundation compared
yeah,
to us.
it was harder, and I went on a bit of a tandem, but I meant to get to the point where they needed to build for themselves. They needed that iman and deen themselves. So not every parent, like we see, went to, for example, through Islamic education, or they didn't come with the proper intention of, you know, I want to settle here, spread deen, and bring up my children in a deeni aspect. But of course, there's a whole, send them to the masjid, send them to do this, get someone to the house and teach them the basics, etc. But whether it was something that was an absolute, probably not as strife, maybe because it was the lack of opportunity as well. So I would say not as good, because there was still work on themselves that needed to be done.
So you're giving it to the old generation?
No, I'd give it to the newer generation.
It can build better Islamic foundations, yeah?
Yeah, but there is, of course, discretions with that as well. There is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
downsides. So but that's like a later point. But yeah,
So then how about yourself, Benjamin?
What have the new generation done? What have we done? Because when I look at what you said, right, whether or not our granddads and parents, when they came here, whether they came here for the deen or for the lives that they wanted to create for themselves, for the betterment of themselves, let's put that aside 1 minute. Of course, in the Ma'amalu Binyat, everything is down to your intentions, and what you have in your heart is what you will set out to do. Of course, I agree with that. But let's look at the facts. 20, 30 years ago, or 50 years ago, when our parents came over, or our grandparents, or great grandparents even, they're the ones that built the masjids. They're the ones that started the madrasas. They're the ones that started all the charity organizations, the Muslim charity organizations. They're the ones that made halal meat accessible. They're the ones that came up with all the HMC and stuff. Now, if we were to sit here, the three of us now, and say, cool, let's talk about what the modern generation, what people our age, what have they done? What have they done to benefit the deen? And what have they done to make Islam more open for everyone, more, what's the word, appealing to everyone? What have they done? What foundations have they set up? Obviously, there's a couple brothers that you see on Instagram, mashallah, barakallahu fiqh. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is those brothers in Ilford or whatever, that they set up that Muslim only gym where they play nasheeds, stuff like that. So in our day and age, where it's so easy to have an influence and do meaningful things, right? What foundations have we set up? Because everything that we have now, all the Islamic infrastructure and all the Islamic base that we have right now in terms of the masajid, the madaris, and charities, halal food, it's not a young man. It's not a young guy like me and you. No way. It's not a young guy like me and you. Or the only other one that I've come across is the one that Nasir doesn't like. It's the halal collagen one, where they're promoting that collagen whilst they're being pretty haram along the way. So you can use that argument there
Yeah.
as well in the new gen that, okay, cool, this
Mm.
guy's been innovative and he's done something which is halal collagen, but then the way that he's advertising it is in a very un-Islamic way. So we could use your argument here, Nasir, and say that this brother's in the market for money, or anyone else in the market is just there for money. They're not actually there for the Islamic foundation and creating Islamic infrastructure and influence. So the point I'm trying to make
Mm.
is Islam, what do we need? We need a mosque. I ain't seen anyone our age build a mosque. In fact, you go to the mosques now, right? It's all old people. The other day, when I was at work, Alhamdulillah, I'm so glad there's not a prayer room at my new workplace, because now it means that, oh, you haven't given me a prayer room, now you have to let me go to the mosque. I kind of dropped it on them like that. So now I get to pray in Jama'ah now, innit? So with calamities, sometimes there's a bit of blessing. Alhamdulillah for that. But anywho, now that I've got my shukr out the way, I went to this masjid, which is like a 6-7 minute walk from my workplace. And obviously, Jumu'ah day, packed, no problem. However, this is a Turkish mosque in the heart of Edmonton, where if you go into the shopping centre, where there's 100,000 people, however many people, I would say it's about, 30-40% Muslim. And the mosque is a 5-minute bop away from the shopping centre. You go to the masjid at Salah time, you barely have one saf. You barely have one saf. And when I look around, the only people that are there are uncles. The only people that are there are fathers and granddads that either live local or they are in the local shops and they're coming from nearby. Although I know in my workplace itself, there's so many young Muslims as well. If you go to the shopping center, so many young Muslims as well. Furthermore, in this very mosque, these guys, they're very open-minded. They have a section at the back where there are toys for the children, in both the men and women section, where kids can come in and while Salah is going on, they can come and pray, and they can come and pray whilst their kids come and play. So it's an inviting place. It's an inviting place that has been set up by who? The old generation. And who's in the mosque now? The old generation. Come Jumu'ah day, let's talk about who's in the mosque as well. Most of the people in there, old generation. So the point I'm trying to make is, old gen have done way more for the deen. Way more. And us, we're caught up in our lives, be it with work, be it with social media, be it with our fancy cars. I don't think the new gen does much for the deen. In fact, I'm going to go further and say I don't think we do much for ourselves, let alone for the people and the Muslims around us.
It sounds more
is-
like you're saying, I don't know, because it comes down to the workplace as well. You're talking about Salatul Zuhr, right? So Zuhr time, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like most people are working at that time. So the defense, and even though I don't like defending the youth,
Go on.
the defense of our generation would be that 9 to 5, man, work a job. Like, yeah, I can't get half an
Okay.
hour break just to.
Firstly, let's put emphasis on where the mosque is located. It's located in the hub of the shopping center, or a 5-minute walk away from there, right? Why is it all the other people in the area who are working their jobs, who are working their businesses, business owners, they are completely fine pulling a shutter down, shutting down for 15 minutes, going to pray Salah, number one. And number two, if you can go out for lunch with your colleagues and be like, oh yeah, the 15 minutes here and there extra for my mental health so I can go get a vape or something. If you can do that and you can justify it, why can't you do that for Salah? Because you can. If you ask anyone who works in a 9
Yeah.
to 5, how do you cut corners? How do you niggle an extra 10-15 minutes break? How do you slack off? Yeah, so I do this. Oh, I pretend to do this. Okay, so what I do is I go to the fax machine, pretend it's not working, and then I go to the toilet for 5 minutes. I can watch some highlights. Okay, cool. So you know how to get 5 minutes out of your work day, 15 minutes, maybe even half an hour. But then you say, yo, can you spare 5 minutes for Salah? No, I'm busy. I can't. So, old gen would definitely pray their Salah. Tell you that now.
Priorities. Yeah,
Mosque.
so
Go to the
listening
mosque,
to
you'll
all
see
these
it.
points.
That
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
takes us to the next point, which is
Mm.
in a nice way, future building, because you kind of highlighted. So I obviously I gathered that you say old gen won that, so that's
100. All
I
day
agree
long.
with Benjamin on that case. That
Yeah,
old
yeah.
gen did build a good foundation for the next generations to carry on building and improving,
I
and a
acknowledge
few
one
places
of
have, a
Nasser's
few
point, though.
places haven't.
I
Go
acknowledge
on.
one of his points, though. There's one thing that he
Yeah.
said that doesn't make sense. that I really need to hit home on. If you give someone a, let's say, I don't know, a boxing bag, right? And you give them a fresh one, and then they punch it up, right? That's a fresh boxing bag where, they lay the first marks and they're the ones that really mold the shape of the boxing bag. It's a terrible example, but I couldn't think of anything else, right? They got first dibs at it. Meaning everything that needed to be done, there was more opportunity for the old gen to do meaningful things as Muslims. I suppose if our generation were to come 20, 30 years ago, and we were to realize that there was an absence of deen, there was an absence of halal, there was an absence of the Islamic knowledge and the facilities for prayer, we would naturally be like, okay, we need to sort something out. So I would say that one thing that doesn't justify the lack of commitment and progress from the new gen is the fact that because there's not as much for us to do, that's why less is being done. Whereas if Islam was dear, when something is dear to you, when something is less, it becomes dearer to you. And when you have something in abundance, you take it for granted. And I suppose because we have Islam in abundance right now, that's why we take it for granted. Whereas if we were
I guess
to...
there's also one more thing though, because if you're talking about old generation, new generation, what is old generation? What is new? Who are the old generation? Who was new?
That's
one
exactly
thing,
what I was
because
about to get to.
Yeah. So if you're born in this country, does that automatically make you new generation or not?
Yeah.
I think,
and if you're
I think
born
it's not like that.
out of this country, yeah.
I don't think it's based on that. I'll be honest, this might sound completely outrageous, but this really diversifies it. I think you differentiate old gen and new gen by those who use social media and those who don't.
I wouldn't do that, but I understand why you do that. I would
do that.
because
Nah, the reason why I wouldn't do that is because now the old people use social media now, so that
because like you said, HMC.
Not everyone.
HMC was set up by somebody who I would say was old generation, but wasn't necessarily born out of this country. He was born in this country, I believe. But he's on socials now because he's realized he can, influence people. Hence, he's on it now. Future building. I do believe the new generation has more of a, oh, look what's happening at schools. We have to set something up. You got to, start teaching them at home, homeschooling. You got to tutor them and do this and do that. We got to combat this. And I do see the parents nowadays who are new generation, technically, they do have that mindset of, okay, how do we keep our kids, how do we keep our kids safe? They have that concern and worry. So, 100%. Future building wise, I guess we've kind of just jumped on that now. That is the second point. Who builds more opportunities and stability? Because that's one main thing. The elders, you can say, built opportunities by making a masjid, making a madaris, making jobs for teachers and imams and ustads and everything. But did they really make them stable enough? Like, we came from a madrasa ourselves. Like, we can say if they're stable or not. Alhamdulillah, it's still running. But we know there's madrasas in this country that have been shut and only over 18s can go, or there's other places that literally are falling apart, can't even go to anymore because of the building literally not being stable enough. So we start with Benjamin this time. Stability and future building, what do you say?
I think, linking back to the first point, old gen have created much, much more, and old gen are the ones who are currently carrying majority of the Islamic infrastructure right here, right now. And without them, a lot of it probably ceases to exist. However, I should really emphasize, I do feel like if guys like us, the newer generation, the younger people, if we were to get more involved, we could have way more impact than our ancestors and forefathers did, especially in this country. However, it's just not happening. And I would say that's down to the upbringing. I don't feel like young people are interested in
the environment.
Yeah, I don't feel like people are interested.
I don't want to cut you off too soon. But I'm going to. Sorry, but your head teacher of the maktab that you work at, would you say
Not
it's old
anymore.
generation or new generation? Food Mosque one.
That one I've been done with them a long time ago. That's a whole different
But
story.
who was the head teacher? Would new generation, old generation?
Okay, new generation. However,
And
before
you
me,
would say he's
the
running that, though, innit? He's moving that forward, and that's why I think like I would have to
exactly.
counter you there. A lot of the
Okay,
new maktabs that are they run by new generation people with these new syllabuses and new ways of teaching.
Mm.
in this area, out of all the other madaris or maktab, right? The rest of them are old gen. And that one that I'm not at now is like, I'll be honest, I don't even know what's happening now, but it's a whole different story. But the point I'm trying to make is the old gen did enough for themselves, but they didn't really set up the future in terms of just getting people to find it appealing to be in the mosque. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. If a Bengali parent opened up a takeaway or he opened up a cash and carry, you best believe his son is in there doing some manual labor and his daughter's at home doing his finances. And they're invested and then they're like, oh yeah, dad, I want to be part of the business when I grow up. Father gets into properties, the daughter and the son, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to get into properties too. I want to learn, I want to make money like my dad. And even if the kids don't want to be involved, parents will force them to be a part of it. However, let's flip it and let's look at the mosque committees now. Those guys that are in the masjids and they're the ones that have created the masjids, maintaining it, what are they doing for the future? Nothing. The future of the masjid is the young people. And are they bringing them in and making them feel like a stakeholder and a shareholder whereby they're the ones that are eventually going to take over? No. Furthermore, do you feel like there's opportunities for young people in the masajid? Do you feel like these people have a voice? I feel like the only time you're relevant as a young person in the mosque or in an Islamic environment is if you're one of those typical roadmen and you go from a rags to riches story in terms of your deen, where you're proper out on the street like, yeah, I'm a roadman, I'm on this drug, I'm on that, I'm on this smoke, I'm on that. And then when you come into the mosque, then you're like, wallahi, brother, this life ain't it. That's the only time as a youth you're actually welcome into the mosque. But for just a regular guy who wants to come in and make a difference, you're not welcome there. You come in and then like you try and give your ideas and input. Someone's gonna look at you and they're gonna say, who's this guy trying to tell me what to do? So I would say if we want to achieve stability, the young people need to get involved more. The young people need to get involved more because we have so many ideas, we have so much energy, and we can do things that the old gen can't do. We can understand things in the perspective that they can't. We can understand the difficulties of the modern day, and then we can combat them from an Islamic environment. You go to
So,
and
so what you're saying
gone.
though is we haven't seen the potential of the future building the way that
Yep,
the youth or the new generation can influence the future and what they can set
exactly.
up. But if they were given the chance, they would set it up better than it is set up now.
100%. The only issue I would say is nowadays, the new gen, we tend to sit back and discuss things a lot, but nothing actually gets done. One thing about the old gen is
100% agree
the
with you. 100%
the
agree with you. I think there's a lot of Twitter fingers like keyboard warriors that want to talk
yeah,
about this is wrong, that's wrong. Oh yeah, why does this happen? Why did that happen? And when it comes to like anyone, like it's probably a bit because when it comes to anyone saying, "Yo, get up and let's do something about it," then let's stop talking about it. Let's go. Like let's see if we can deal with the situation and change it. Then people are like, it's not that
exactly
easy,
it.
man. Like you
Exactly.
go do things to have that happen.
Let
There's
me just
nothing
make
to say
one
about
last
that.
point. One
Go
last
on.
point, yeah. I feel like old gen, they don't fully know what they're doing sometimes, and they don't have the full understanding of what modernity requires of them. However, one thing about them is whether they're right or wrong, they'll get stuff done. Whereas us, we come up with 50 ideas. Of the 50, how many get implemented? None. So this is a terrible analogy, but anyone who understands it understands it. Anyone who doesn't, I have to think of something else. If you look at football, you got a player who's got so much natural ability and talent, right? But then you compare them to someone who doesn't have that ability, talent, but they've ended up with more accolades, honors, and trophies. Why? It's about who actually gets up and goes and does something. And an example comes to mind, but I don't think it would be appropriate to list two footballers in this podcast because you might end up like those beta squad.
So then, Nasser, yeah. Well, what do you think? I think you've been thinking for quite a while now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I've
y-
been trying to not cut Binyamin up, and yourself when you were making your points. As much as we've said that we're gonna try settle this once and for all, I really don't think we can. My point being is modern day, modern problems. So the mentality of our old generation back then, they had solutions in their way of thinking, and a lot of them are still stuck in that. Yes, we do get the odd here and there, mashallah, educated elders of ours. Like they came to this country, they, came through the education system of this country. They understand how this country works with the sort of whilst keeping deen there, but they do see that they need to move forward with, for example, modern day society in terms of not just for like being in a masjid, but then you now because we've seen the reality of the masjid, we can't just be in the masjid. We need to be doing other things like we were discussing earlier just before we started the episode. Like, because unfortunately, where people see value in has left from what our elders saw value in, where it was not every single individual of the elders, but from where the effort started with how much uh how Benjamin was saying that they should just go out and get things done, whether they knew much or not, they used to go for it regardless. Like for example, we hear so many stories of our ulama, for example, like our own madrasa, Mufti Mustafa. He wanted to start a madrasa. He literally went around doing chanda. Then he got his groups of ulama together, or locals together. They were going around fundraising, crowd raising, fundraising, and that. And then we can say, yeah, let's set up something online. But then, by the time we get around doing it, there's like another 50 excuses why we can't do it. Oh, they're not gonna give it. It's only such a little thing, Nah, 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 nah. We've got other things to do, and so it's like a whole conundrum. It's like in terms of like you said, there's a definite potential that we're not unlocking, but at the same time, it's the modern day problems that create that the environment we're in. It's this environment has been created to sort of make us weak and weak-willed. Be comfortable with what you have, and obviously, then when you say, "Oh, strive for more," then it's like, "Oh yeah, this guy, he red pilled and oh beat the matrix, all that nonsense." It goes too far, then people say, but it's us as Muslims is we always try to strive for good, but we get caught up in the mindset. Like I'll probably say I'm like a big offender of this as well. It's like how much is too much, and when it's too much, it's like why am I putting that much effort in when I can just be comfortable with what I'm doing when it's enough? And I've had that thought many times, but then it's as Muslims we should strive to do the best at what we do, but then we're knowing the balance with what we're prioritizing. What are we trying to prioritize? And then I think a lot of that is because when we don't focus and prioritize deen, these things happen. Like, where we can have all the intentions, but really and truly in our heart is what that love for dunya and the love for just being at ease and comfort sort of just kicks in.
There's a saying actually that when we were recording this the first time, I'll say it later, inshallah, if somebody reminds me. But it totally sums up the way that it is and how it is like nowadays, and it potentially tells us how it will be in the future. But like you were saying about the mindset, that is the next thing. Mindset on who had the better mindset.
Yeah.
I can see, because I use obviously my area, no, the area that I lead Salah. I use that as an example. Like you being there yourself, both of you on the same road, 5-minute difference, 5-minute walk difference, probably less than that. You have two different masjids, and in the area, it's become known as Pakistani Masjid, Bengali Masjid. And one thing you derive from that is they divided, but they got things done. And nowadays you do see this whole thing of, alhamdulillah, we're multicultural, alhamdulillah, we're keeping the ummah together, alhamdulillah, we're trying to stick together, and we're trying to get a masjid. And it's like, okay, how long have you been trying? Oh, about 29 years, 30 years. It's like, okay, now, divided, and they got things done in the old generation. And nowadays you see we're unifying and we're trying to stay together, and yeah, brothers and that. until it comes to your fiqh and stuff, and then you see people kick off. But you see people unifying and trying to get, as long as it's slowly, but yeah, we got something going, it's slow, yes, these things take time. Whereas old generation, you can say it was easier for them, but they divided and got things done.
It's a very hard one. It's a very hard one because where the division started, like I'm gonna keep always going back to ulama because deen, where does it come from? It comes from those people that study the religion of Allah. You know, the whole transmission of ilm from the Prophet ﷺ to where we have now got it is always, of course, through those people that actually strived and went through it. And where the whole the strong-willed mentality that our old generation had, that is definitely admirable. And yes, things got done, but because of, you could say, the prejudice of some people, it became Pakistani masjid, it became Bengali masjid, it became Somali masjid. If it was madhab separated, fair enough. But unfortunately, most of our, well, sorry, not the fact that it's South Asian, but I'm just saying it's most of our South Asian community are Hanafi, as far as I'm aware. And maybe not today. Maybe it's way different nowadays because ilm is widely accessible, and we won't get into what's right and wrong from the way they take it, but that's another discussion. But back then, predominantly from our Indian ulama, our Bengali, Pakistani ulama, the Hanafi madhab was far more dominant, and where they went wrong was the whole Pakistani, Bangladeshi stuff. Whereas if it was madhab related, like for example, a lot of the Malaysian are Shafi'i, a lot of the Somali community are Shafi'i, but then now it's like, amongst them Shafi'is, you get the ones that step on your feet, you get the ones that have their hands up here, you get the ones that don't wear sunnah libas, just calling it sunnah. You get the ones that, so it's hard to tell now, like what was a healthy division, or like a healthy separation, in the sense of, if it was madhab related, it would have been absolutely fine, because we do need that, and the four madhabs are accepted for a reason. Allah SWT granted that acceptance for that reason. But that's why I'm saying it's hard, because the division side of things, maybe if it was unified from then, it would still be unified now. Yes, there's more of an effort to keep it unified, but now there's a new sort of influx of, take and
Division.
pick and choose what you want.
So what I'm understanding is the division is alright, but it just needed to be the right division.
The right division, yeah. So I would still say the elder generation were better in that
because
sense.
they got things, they not necessarily, but they got things done, even though it wasn't the right way. And
the thing is, it's it was through prophecy anyway, like that the later generations would suffer because of environment and influences, and the hadith of holding on to deen will be like holding on to hot coal, and all those. We can make them excuses, and really and truly, if you hear ulama or people of other countries, for example, like the Muslim countries, like the ones that are generally good in the Muslim countries, when they hear about there's madaris in the UK, in America, well, I don't know about the situation in America, but let's just say UK, because that's what we know about it and what we did ourselves. So when they hear about ulama and huffaz being graduating from UK, they're like amazed. They're like, wow, in a country where you have free will, you can drink alcohol wherever you want. You can pop into the shop, grab this, grab that. You go to the corner of the street, you can grab some nice greens and all that stuff. Like, you chose, and you out of all that, you went to madrasa, you learned the religion of Allah and stuff like that. So it is that, in that sense, that sort of our own jihad. You get it, like, because of our environment stuff. So it's I failed to come to a conclusion, but I would slightly lean towards the older generation, to be honest.
I would think that there's one thing that you said about we can make those excuses, but that's like hiding, I think. But yeah, go on, Benjamin. What's your opinion on it, mindset wise?
I agree with that point you're making right there. You can make excuses for the people.
Mm.
Like Nasir, you gave the good hadith of the example when Prophet ﷺ, he talks about holding on to deen is like holding on to hot coals, right?
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, anyone could use that to say, oh yeah, like it was prophesized
Yeah.
for it to be difficult for us. And let's be honest, most young people or most new generation people will use that as an example to say, yeah, I can't be a practicing Muslim because it's like holding on to a hot coal. You can't hold on to a hot coal. That's
Yeah.
how they would understand it and use
Yeah,
that
that's the
hadith.
thing. Yeah.
When in
Yeah.
reality, the purpose of that hadith is basically to say, listen, it's going to be tough for you, but you got to hold on to the religion no matter how hard it is. That's the lesson from it. The lesson is a warning. It's not trying to make you feel better about yourself, saying that, yeah, you're a flop and don't worry, it's expected for you to be hard. No, the purpose of that hadith and the purpose of a prophecy is to tell you what the correct answer
Mm.
is and what you need to do in times of calamity. Now, if we were
Yeah.
to really dumb it down, if somebody told you something clear as daylight, you're ill, this piece of medication is going to make you better. If you don't take it, what are you going to say about that person that doesn't take the medication? You're going to think, what an absolute fool. So we have the medicine to all of our spiritual ailments and
Yeah.
our lack of morality. But instead of saying that, oh yes, I need to hold on to that call, which is Islam, we're going to say, oh yeah, it's difficult to take it. Medication
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
nice. Medication
Yeah.
is not nice, yet we still do not take it. So now that links to
That's
my point about mentality. Yeah?
Mm.
Go on. Before I
You know
hit the
that.
point.
Yeah. No. That's why I was just about to say how that's why I leant towards the older generation, because for them it was whatever came their way, we've got something to do. Do you get it?
Mm.
They didn't let things get in their way. In that sense, you have to admire their strong will.
But
Obviously,
yeah,
yeah.
the analogy
They
that
can swallow
Benjamin
the
gave
better
though with
pills.
the doctor and the
Mm.
medicine, if you get like this is the medicine, like it's gonna make you feel better. Whereas nowadays it's like here's your medicine and the person's like, but the side effects, like on
Yeah.
Google, like I read like this form and like these guys said that they had this medicine and this happened to them, and I think
I'm
this
Yeah.
so glad
medicine
you
is actually
mentioned
better,
that.
doctor.
So glad you
Yeah.
mentioned that. Because now that links to the point that I want to hit home on. The old generation guys, yeah, they had their divides and stuff. But because they had their divides, they would deviate, but they would deviate with people who would share intentions, who would share culture and value, morals and values, and share a similar mindset. And because those guys lumped together, those guys got together, formed a band, they went and done what they needed to do. Whereas all these other guys who will talk about, yes, inclusivity, if that's even a word, being inclusive, getting everyone together. I'll tell you how that goes. I went to a council meeting a couple years ago, all the mosques in North London. So you got a Bengali masjid, you got a Somali masjid, you got a Turkish masjid, you got an Arab masjid, all different, different madahib, different ways of running all across North London. I'll be honest with you, the best thing from that meeting was the food. Otherwise, everyone at the table, with all due respect, yeah, may Allah accept the efforts of all the people who came there out of their busy lives to be a part of a masjid meeting.
With
Barakallahu
good
feek.
intentions. Yeah.
Barakallahu feekum, yeah, or barakallahu him, yeah. Bless them. However, in that meeting, all it was, everyone comes round, everyone gives an inspirational speech. We must do this. We must accept each other. This is the problem that we face as the North London Committee of Masjids. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm really behind you. But come the end of the meeting, it's like, so what have we agreed to get done? Like, we've all given a passionate, inspirational speech, yet nothing actually got done. We just sat there waffling, trying to understand each other, and nothing actually got done. And then come the next meeting, we're literally having the same conversations again. So, wait, what is it we're doing
Mm.
again? So then you got like a man and a woman sitting over there. One guy's introducing his idea, then she's arguing with him, and then it's like, okay, what should we do? Then the third person comes in and he comes up with a completely different idea. And it's like, so what have we actually achieved from this meeting? Now, whilst you guys were understanding each other and being inclusive, all you were doing was feeding each other's egos without actually doing anything that was meaningful for the guys that are losing their deen. Whereas our divided communities, In that time, they probably organized an event with the Bengali scholar who's going to come and speak in Bengali. Although it only appeals to one group of people, at least they've had some influence in their community. Furthermore, furthermore, I feel like even our young generation, we boast about understanding and having a better perspective of things. But going back to that first point I made, I feel like we use our understanding to find shortcuts and cheat codes rather than actually implement it to do anything meaningful. And
That's it.
the example I'm going to give is the one that one of my ustads gave when I tried to do Alim class, but it didn't work out. He was like, our older generation people, you tell them this is right, this is wrong. They will never ask why. They'll just say, yep, sounds right. I take your word for it. You're a knowledgeable person. Sami'na wa ata'na. Ata'na, innit? Hear and obey. Yeah? That's what it was. Hear and obey. And they would have that respect and value even though they never fully understood it. And the example he gave was in India, where there was a wall. There was a wall, and on the wall there was so much writing which basically said, do not take a leak here. It was written in Arabic, it was written in English, it was written in Hindi, it was written in 50 other languages. However, what happened is, because so many people kept urinating there, and the wall started to erode and rust, all the writing started to fade. And the only writing that was actually visible on the wall was the Arabic writing. Now what happened is, a couple locals, they go there to do their business, Muslims as well. You could say they're like nomads, they have not a lot of social values and stuff, so whatever the situation. He goes on to explain that these guys, Muslim people, not a lot of shame and, infrastructure to go to an actual toilet. They would see the Arabic on the walls and be like, yo, there's Arabic written on the wall there. We can't take a leak there. That is the respect that we have for the Islam and the Deen. Although it literally just says in Arabic, don't take a leak here. It's nothing to do with Quranic verses or hadith, right? Now, if me and you had a bit of understanding of Arabic, if we saw that, we wouldn't look at it and say, oh, that means don't take a leak here. We would interpret it as, oh, it's just a little bit of writing, meaning if we wanted to, we can take a leak here. That's the way our mentality is. The young generation will look at things, give their own opinion, and then make their own decisions. And more often than not, we know what the right from wrong is, yet we still go and do the wrong. Whereas our older generations, listen, this is right, no problem, we're going to do it. Although that has made them, I should emphasize this, that has made them very narrow-minded. So that means sometimes older generation, they can be very unopen. They can be very closed. That's the word. Why am I saying unopen? They're very closed to certain matters that they should perhaps be open to. Best example is a Bengali guy tries to bring home a non-Bengali Muslim girl who's probably better than most Bengali girls. Allah knows best. The parents would be like, Tawbah, astaghfirullah. In that situation, that narrow-mindedness is a problem. However, if I had to choose, I would rather be narrow-minded and have the amal and the practice of a Muslim than to be open-minded and do absolutely nothing.
We get the best of both. Like, that is the main reason of this. Like, can we and how do we? Like, we've heard the weaknesses and the strengths of both of them. Now, is there a way that we can try and embody that we be the best of both of them? Go on, Benjamin, what do you see that looking like?
Going back to my earlier point, the same way we, with our children, we would want them to follow in our footsteps. We should want them to follow in our religious footsteps too. The path that we walk, we get them to walk that path with us, and we make them resonate with that path. We make it appeal to them, and we make them see the beauties and the fruits of that journey. That's the best way. And that comes with us doing what we need to do as parents. Well, we're not all parents here, but that comes with what parents need to do in terms of doing what they need to do, fulfilling their duties and responsibilities as Muslims in society. But along with that, do not get so caught up with your roles and responsibilities as a Muslim man in society, trying to be a hero, that you forget about your own kids. Don't be that person. You can try and save everyone else's kids. You can try and do an event in the mosque where you're talking about youth coming to the masjid and not doing haram. But if your son is sitting at home talking to a girl, listening to music, or not even praying a salah, have you really achieved what you need to do? Are you really there to guide that person? Or are you there because 50 other people in the masjid are going to look at you and say, he is that guy? So how do you get the best of
Yeah.
both? You do what you need to do with pure intentions, like the way that we said. Everything that you do has to be with that sincere intention. You don't pick and choose what you say. What needs to be said should be said. That's what you
Yeah.
say. If people take it, alhamdulillah. If they don't, what more can we say? At the end of the day, that's not an excuse to stop delivering the message, because we know the Prophet ﷺ, him being the Prophet, his enemies would listen to him recite the Quran. That's how good his recitation was. But their arrogance would not allow them to accept his message, right? So if he, being the friend of Allah who had the ability to perform miracles and so many other things in this life, couldn't convince everyone to accept Islam, we can't expect people to do the same. However, we shouldn't use that as an excuse to stop with the work that we are doing. And that goes to both parents and both children, both old gen and new gen. You do what you need to do. If it doesn't have the desired impact, yeah, of course you've missed out. But if you guide one person, right, you've not failed. And that goes back to the point you said, Nasir, about how online deen of da'wah doesn't work. Probably doesn't. I agree with you, because who wants to watch a 1 hour podcast talking about Islam when you can watch a 1 hour TikTok about, I don't know, something random? Fair enough. But if one person listens to this, and they take one
Yeah.
piece of advice from this and they implement it in their life and they get to heaven because of that, yeah, that's a win for all of
Yeah.
us. Just
Yeah.
one.
100%. 100%.
Just
100%.
one.
And
And
I wanna.
I'm
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm happy for this to never go anywhere. I won't lie to you, my phone's about to die, but I'm really in the zone. So if I do get cut out, I'm leaving it to you lot. If one person listens to one thing that either of you say and nothing that I've ever said, it's still a win for me. Because alhamdulillah, we were part of
Mm.
something that helped one person along their way. And that's how we should look at it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I just want to add to exactly what your point was, but also add to another part of your point. So I heard something really amazing from an ulama, an alim, sorry. I forgot who it was. And maybe it's better if I don't say the name anyway, but it's a point that's quite relevant to what you were just saying with that in regards to parenting. There are genuinely people out there that are struggling with their own children, but they are a community hero, as you say. Yes, their efforts should always be at the forefront. You know, in their homes, it should have started from day one. As soon as they were born, Islamic foundations should have been set and should be set. And sometimes it is set. But the point I'm trying to make is, and it's also with in regards to da'wah to other people, where Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his very own uncle, Abu Talib. How unfortunate it was, like when we hear his story, he just sounds like that lovely uncle that he always protected his nephew. He kept him safe from the harm of the Quraysh. When people were harming him, he'd be his shield. But he didn't accept Islam. So then, for that reason, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He sent that verse down to him when Abu Talib, he passed away without iman. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, to console the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to make it known that إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء. That indeed you cannot guide those who you love. ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء. But it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that guides who He wants. So it's a similar situation where you've exhausted all your options. You've tried your best with your children. Yet for somehow, somewhere down the line, he got influenced or she got influenced by something. They're falling into sin. They're falling into the wrong groups and the wrong environments. But that effort must not stop, as Binyamin made the point before he got cut out. That the effort must not stop. The du'as must remain. The tears in front of Allah must remain. Because like the Umar radiallahu an, sometimes the people with the worst past can make the best futures. All these stories and all these inspirations must remain, despite how it might be looking bleak at the moment. If the efforts are still there, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they are able to come back onto the path. But as soon as you let go, like unfortunately it seems like some of our parents do, they let go, they let their
stop trying.
children go, they stop trying. They, every time I try to speak to my son, every time I speak to my daughter, they give me attitude, they give me lip. They tell me to do this, they will do that. Sometimes maybe some of them maybe even physically harm me as well. So that's it. I'm gonna leave them alone now. They've the social service got involved and stuff. That's it. Leave them to their devices now. Now, sometimes of course it could be because your hands are tied. Social service, you're gonna get put in jail or they're gonna be separated from you completely, and that way it's worse as an environment. But when it's not gone to that stage, the efforts must remain, and whether it be directly with them or the efforts between you and Allah, making dua to Allah, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them, making the extra salahs, extra nawafil to, for that guidance and that protection, and to bring them back, and for ourselves to remain steadfast must always remain. And of course it's like that with anyone that you try to give da'wah to and it's not really working out, we have to remember that Allah guides who He wants.
But that leads me to the saying that I was talking about earlier. The person did tell me, tough times make strong people, and those strong people make good times, and those good times make weak people. So the elders and the people that came earlier,
weak people make tough
make
times.
excuses.
And make tough times.
Make tough times.
Yeah.
But yeah, the elder generation came and it was a tough time, and alhamdulillah, they were strong people for it. Mentally, physically, whichever way you want to look at it, alhamdulillah, they were strong for it. And they got through things that maybe we could never ever get through. But they made it a bit easy. They made it very easy for us. And now it's just like, well, there's a masjid 5 minutes down the road, 10 minutes away. Oh, what? Nah, man, I want it 2 minute walk. Oh, what? There's a masjid there. Oh, that's fine, man. It's okay. I can pray at home. Well, back in that day, it was, I want to pray somewhere. So they made it easier, made weaker people as it is, because we're in good times. And I'll say we're still in good times, alhamdulillah. But maybe those tough times are coming soon. You can see it starts from the younger ages first, right? The youngsters right now, what they're being taught, those tough times are going to be coming soon. And may Allah make us strong and keep us strong for those times. Or make the people that are going to be facing those times strong. And that is our own purpose of doing this. We're trying to make people stronger, keep those mindsets right. And what should we be actually looking at? You got any gift to give? You've learned something. We hope you've benefited something. We hope you've liked it, even if it was long, even if it was something you didn't want to hear. Inshallah, it was the haqq, it was the truth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us saying the haqq and only the truth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase in our knowledge, in our efforts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the best we can. And like we said, if you didn't like it, and if you think we need to improve, do dua for us, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I just want to say about Binyamin, some of Binyamin's points as well. So do you know how laying the foundation in a general regard in terms of who built the masajid, who built the madaris, that's all well and good. But that was my point hitting, in the sense that it was the ulama mainly. Yes, I'm not gonna just give them all the credit, but they are the forefront of it. But we did have, of course, pious elders of ours. Maybe our grandfather or one of our great uncles or some. Maybe someone in our family was a part of that. Like I could say my father, he tried to do something like that, and Allah have mercy on him. And maybe one of your grandfathers, Benjamin, maybe one of Imam's grandfathers or uncles, or someone somewhere, they tried to do something for the deen. But what my point is the fact that in a sense of how you were saying, we have it laid out for us, and there's a lack of things for us to do because we have so much things available. But then yes, it's a blessing that we take for granted, especially in certain areas like London and Leicester and Manchester, Bradford, Dewsbury. Like Dewsbury is literally, like, I'd literally say 70% Muslim. So them areas, yeah, you can have that sense of entitlement where it's been there for them since their birth, like the younger generation. But where I was trying to point out in terms of laying out a foundation, I meant on a home to home basis, our Asian slash Muslim parents that come from another country, or maybe they were born here but their parents was from another country. How much did they do at home for the child? Does that make sense? That's what I was coming from. You meant in a general perspective, like as a community, what foundations did they set? The masjids, 100%. I can't disagree with that. So I think my outlook went onto a different perspective, whereas your one was a general community. Yes, 100% agree with the
I'll ask
masjids
you a
and
question
the
on that.
Islamic centers. Yeah.
So I want to ask a question on that. So you feel like the older
Mm.
generation didn't do as much to help the
Th-
development of Islam in the
Not
households, in the individual households?
yes and no. Like I said,
Yeah.
a lot of it was to do with their own personal development. They didn't get it themselves enough.
But
Like it
then
wasn't
Mm.
as
when you say Jamaat
accessible.
though, Tabligh
Mm.
like focuses on the family. You know, got to do talim at home twice or once a
Mm.
day. Like
Yeah.
that was, I don't see anyone from the new generation even thinking of that or trying that. I do know one or
Yeah.
two people that actually do it from
Yeah.
the new
Nugent.
generation,
Does
but
Nugent even do
yeah,
salah?
but that's what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
it's a different because I think new gen do have a whole. That's the whole next thing in it, future building. Do
Yeah.
you think who is better with the future building?
But some people it's too much now. It's getting the women involved as well.
I've heard of places where they did. I heard a place where a woman did try to get into the trustees, but
Yeah,
they
you
didn't
see.
let her in.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But
that's
okay,
what I'm
that's
saying.
sorry.
They
It's back to
divided.
real life, innit?
I was just saying, is what he was saying as well, and you know how we, the modern generation, we sort of try to find shortcuts and stuff like that because we sort of know more. Um, well, we think we know more. Uh, it's also with these certain compassionate imams as well. You know, the ones that always say, "Mercy of Allah, mercy of Allah, mercy of Allah." Where is Allah's adab, bro? Huh? Where is
Actually,
Allah's adab? If you do
Allah
this,
is al-adl.
you know what I'm saying? Allah is al-adl. Yeah, Allah is the most just. We will get what we deserve. You get it? And it's the feeding into the minds of people that clearly, openly doing wrong. Clearly, openly doing wrong. My brothers, my sister, the Almighty always forgives. So turn back to Him. How do you turn back to Him? Did you feel bad for your sin? Did you feel remorse? Did you feel regret? Do you know that if you keep doing this, you might die in that situation? Allah might. Where is there's no the differentiation like iman bain al khawfi wa raja. It's the mixture and the balance between fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his adab and upsetting him, and the raja meaning the hope and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Islam is a darmiyani, right? It's that middle pathway, as you know, we always used to hear in the classes and that, and maybe in bayans you might hear it as well. That Islam is the middle way. Christianity failed for what reason, or it was changed for what reason? It's too lenient, or it's out of the picture for what reason? Too lenient. They say what if someone slaps you, give them another cheek. Yeah. The Jewish religion too harsh. Women have to shave their head. The men have to keep these, mashallah, nice the hairstyles that they have. Like, not trying to you know yeah, maybe I did, but okay, Allah forgive me. I didn't mean to make it sound like that. But they have harsh rulings on them where it's you do that or you're not part of a sort of thing, or you will be apostated. Basically, you apostated the religion in that sense. So and stuff like at the time of Musa alayhi salam, when they used to the impurities used to go on their clothes, they used to have to cut it off. They couldn't clean it. So certain things like that, and with Islam being that middle path, it's what happens with us nowadays. It becomes too far right or too far left. It's too much fear with the fear mongering of certain individuals. That oh, kafir, 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 munafiq, kafir, munafiq, and then other ones, oh, Allah will forgive me. But I'm not gonna pray. I'm not gonna wear hijab. I'm not even gonna make an effort. Maybe one day I'll just say, Allah, let me turn back to you, and not, the mind is the thought is there, but there's no actions leading to it. So that is one of the biggest fallacies of nowadays. Not that it's never happened before. Not that to say that the older generation you never had those people like that, but it's more prevalent now because of certain influences. And it's funny to say that the ones that are more, firm, and the ones that are more, you could say, give more in terms of a whole, Islam as a whole to the community, like the ulama that, put themselves out there, but don't have as much people following them or, listening to them. It's because it doesn't appeal to them. Whereas the ones that, speak nicely, as they say, or speak, with the sweetness, always about the sweetness of, or how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You see why that people, they sort of want to go and listen to those people alone. So
I wanted to call it charisma, but I don't think charisma is the right word, because you could still be on the haqq and speak with charisma.
yeah.
But yeah, I get
Yeah.
what you mean.
And
Focus on what
like
you
you
wanna
said as well,
focus
you
on.
know what? With what Binyamin's point was, how is when, even if someone does have charisma, there's a name you mentioned earlier before we started the podcast, a certain sheikh of ours, and well, from our Darlum, well, he was in our Darlum. He's got charisma. He's a half white, half Pakistani, so he knows the culture, he knows the language, he knows how. But there's still people that disagree with him because he's speaking haqq, but some people don't like it because it doesn't appeal to what they know or what they want to hear. And like you said, everyone wants to speak and no one wants to listen. Nowadays, everyone wants to speak, but no one wants to listen. And that's something you told me, and it stuck with me from years ago. And
People
it's
choose what they
like,
listen to.
you,
That's it as well.
Everybody
yeah,
wants to be
yeah,
understood. Nobody wants to understand.
yeah. So everyone wants to be understood, no one to understand. Yeah, everyone wants to speak, no one wants to listen. And it's these sort of mentalities that block us from being able to do what the potential says that we can. But like it's like Benjamin said, we can use that as an excuse that it's prophesied that it's going to be that way. But the fact of the matter is, not a lot of people will think that way.
You
That's
saying
why
that,
nothing will happen.
that point just reminds me like of the whole thing of when these earthquakes happen, like may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give sabr and grant the people that have just lost their lives Jannah in these calamities in Libya and Morocco. But like when these things happen and people like post these sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the knowledge will be taken up through the death of the ulama and things like this, those same people are the ones that are looking to, instead of learning the books of the pious predecessors, claiming that they're following the pious predecessors, look to people in nowadays and age who they can learn from, and what does that person say, or what does this person say? Oh yeah, he's closer to our time. What does he say? Whereas it's not, these are what the pious predecessors actually said. Like, obviously that we can make a whole nother podcast on this, like talking about this topic, and I'm sure both of you got passionate things to say, good things, bad things, whatever you want. But the next point, we've basically gone over it all this time. The weaknesses and the strengths. Like the strengths we have said of the old generation is they got things done. They did divide. That was their weakness, and the strength of ours is we got the ideas. We can't just get them done. And that was one thing I wanted to touch upon as well. Actually, like we have a wider reach, but we just can't even get to them. Like you said, internet fundraising. You can fundraise on the internet, and people all over the world can donate to you. But now who wants to do that? Who wants to go to this? Is anyone going to do it? Whereas back then it was a small community, bam, masjid made.
And they strived. Do you get it?
Exactly.
And a part of that as well is it sometimes when it doesn't happen and the evidences can prove it for themselves. There's because with these new fundraising, these people that have a following and that have a sort of community online, because of things like embezzlement, like people will just, they'll take money off people, but they use it for themselves, and then that makes a whole group of people now skeptical. Now, do I wanna invest in someone that's claiming that, inshallah, this is for charity, this is for the sake of Allah, this, that, we're gonna do this, we're gonna take it here, we're gonna help the people there. And then you got the people that think negatively already. Like, for example, when you try to send aid to Palestine, then you've got the blockades over there. Will what we're given even reach them? So then people don't even do that. Whereas obviously we know and we believe that whatever we do give, Allah will give the recompense of that, whether it reaches them or not, because that is out of our control. And then you obviously the fact that we may have a reach, like you said, but then you know, people have their own opinions and they just want to differ because you said this and they don't like it, or it's something that they don't believe or want to listen to, so then they don't engage in it. And it's a whole mixture of things, isn't it? Because now everyone knows everything, especially on social media.
Check
So
Google.
yeah, share Google, and it's like I've always been someone that says online dawah does not work. It does not work, and you could say
That is the
it's mad
we-
because we're doing a podcast right now.
yeah. Like we can
So,
dive into that proper.
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's
Never know, bro.
I got
Yeah,
I
you
got
never
to you
know.
on that. I got to pull you up on that. I got to
no,
pull you
no,
up on
no.
that.
Okay, no. Now let's. Okay, I'm not gonna say like it doesn't work completely because
Nah,
of
we're
course.
definitely grilling you. We're definitely grilling you. Bro.
No.
I
Okay.
got to pull you
Not
up on that.
because
I'm
it-
sorry.
Okay. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Go
Then
on.
you can pull me up. Like yes, it works to in an extent that if the people that are genuinely looking, does that make sense? People that are genuinely looking, if the people that have that knowledge are able to put it on, so it's like as much as we can do, like I'm sure there's no other reasons we're doing this other than inshallah.
I think the way that we understood the way you said it first time is everybody that is doing online dawah is a humble act. That's the
Okay,
way.
all right. See, no. So that's
a good
yeah.
point. That's a good
I
point.
made
though.
it.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah. I made
Because
that too
let-
general.
let-
Sorry. But
Look,
like,
you know
it
what,
was,
yeah?
it's to do with both the creators of the content or the ones that are delivering the message,
Or
as
the
well as
people
the
that are
one
indulging.
taking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that are indulging. What is the intention of being on that? Like some people, unfortunately, they will go listen to someone's speech and someone's sort of school of thought to then pull them up like, oh, he said this wrong, bidah.
You know,
Or
there was a TikTok that I actually saw. Somebody posted about talqeen of the mayyat, and first comment was, "This man is very handsome and he's got a very nice voice, and he's
Oh,
explaining this very
Allah,
well."
Allah give me a husband like him, or oh, he understands Deen so well. Oh, I wish he was my husband. I wish he was,
And
Oh,
it's like,
man.
subhanallah.
And it's funny.
We ain't getting none
It's
of
so
that. Just
funny.
saying, innit?
It's so ajib because I was talking to Khalid about this, yeah, and like astaghfirullah, like we were just laughing because that's what I'm saying in it. It's what do you take? What are you trying to take from the content? You get it? Do you want benefit from it? And the ones giving it, what are we trying to do as well? That's why like the the books of ahadith always start with intentions. Innamal a'malu binniyat. So like it's a reminder for ourselves why we're doing this. Do you get it? It's like inshallah we want to just get points across where if it resonates with people and it makes sense and we can broaden a sort of a question that was in there, it spark a topic of discussion basically, like whether people agree with us or not, that's fine.
Yeah,
but
thinking
our
point.
intention is putting
Something-
it's like a thinking space, like put points out there from what we learned and understood,
Which
and
is
if
that
they have
last
more
point,
to add to
right?
it.
I guess that's one thing that we should try to keep our best to keep in mind as well. Try our best to keep in mind. Because
Would
it's
you say
just-
that's more with people and not your family? Because I think
yeah,
family is
exactly.
bit of a different
As in,
situation,
the
especially immediate family, like your people that are under your
100%.
care, basically.
because that's when it comes silatul rahm, right? Keeping those
Yeah.
family ties, and you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was one person actually local, lived in Welling Garden City, and he, mashallah, when he was trying to establish the masjid, he got things going, like he got things rolling. He said, look, if we can't get a masjid, at least try pray 5 times salah in jama'ah. Let's see if we can get a place that we could do that. Started with Isha salah, then alhamdulillah, slowly we were doing 5 daily prayers in a jama'ah in a place. And then he took a step back, and a lot of people are always focusing on his children's education, move to a better area where they get better education. And when I spoke to him, he did say, I realized I gave a lot of my time to the community. When you're doing that kind of stuff, you give a lot of your time to the community. And I was thinking, why am I trying to put the fires out in the community when my own house is on fire? Like, let me try go put the fire that's at my own house. Like, if there is going to be one, I would want to make sure that fire is out. Like, let's try stop that fire. And then I would start thinking about the community. Hence, he moved to a different area because it had a better community, which he didn't have to have too much influence on. But that leads me to the saying, or should we say that is the gift?
Let's see if you want to add to anything. Then add to it.
There's a lot we can add to. But like we said, like, we don't want to make it too long. But the main subject, the main thing that I want to get forward and get through and get people like to understand is that the way we can become the best of both is just looking at ourselves. We said it before, the ego is the thing that's in the way.
Yeah.
Now, if you can let that ego go and see, okay, this is what someone has done good, we need to take that. We need to grab what they done good, khair, let's try implement it in ourselves. Whereas not, oh, that person's like that person's backward, that person's this. No, look at the khair someone's done and let's try uplift that and also promote and help each other, really. That's what I would try to say. That's the main thing that would keep you the best of both.
Yeah. And this reminds me of the ayah, so might as well just add to that.
The gift.
The gift. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why does he specifically say, save yourselves and your families? And it just goes back to your point, how if we all focused on ourselves and focused on the betterment of ourselves, focused on doing what we need to stay away from the nar, from the fire of hell, all those things that we're meant to be doing would be encompassed in that saving ourselves.
Subhanallah.
Because with that you wouldn't hurt other people. With that you would do your fard and do what you need to do. You'd look after your family. You'd make sure you give them a good upbringing. You'd make sure, because قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ and your family. But then of course in other places, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. So it's not going to be easy, but it's something Allah's ordered us to do. It's not if you want. It's قُوا. It's an order. قُوا, save your and أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ. It's an order. We have to do it. So that's another, I'd say it's more of a harsh warning to those people that give up. You can't give up. We just can't. We just can't do it. Then if you do, we have to expect the repercussions. So, bit of a tough one, isn't it?
Whoa.
It's a tough love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he loves us, but it can be tough at times where it's seemingly tough to us.
Oh,
Whereas,
but inna ma'al usri yusra, always, right?
Yeah. And
there was the other thing as well that just like full circled it. Talk about the hadith in the beginning. It's going to be hard to hold on to your deen because it's like a hot coal.
And then you have to do it. The Quran says you have to do it.
And then we also spoke about fires in the community. People trying to put the fires in the community out when there's fires at their own homes.
Yeah, and then the Quran, and then that Quran, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. It is going to be a test for you. Like, it will be difficult.
It's all full circle, man.
Full circle.